Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Ali Murati, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Cablecast Community Media of Tightrope Media Systems. And we're here today for the latest edition of our PEG Experts Forum webinar series. Today, we are going to be doing a webinar on cybersecurity with our partner on cybersecurity here today. It's Blue Box Technology. We have Andrew, who will be presenting for us. We will be doing a few polls here today. So as we go through the presentation, there's a few things that we want to just poll the audience about, see if you've had experience with any of these particular types of cybersecurity concerns. And we'll release those polls and then close them as we get through that section of the presentation and just kind of review. So without further ado, I am going to switch the screen, or I'm going to stop sharing my screen and give the screen back to Andrew.
Thank you very much. Today we're going to be talking to everyone about cybersecurity and how you can protect your station from cyber attacks. My name is Andrew Calore. I am Vice President of BCI Computers. I've been working in the industry for the last 10 years. BCI Computers has been an industry leader in IT since 1982. I have particularly been assisting businesses with and really focusing on cybersecurity since 2012. I sat on the advisory board of directors for Independence Bank, and I am a current board member of Fast Track. Starting right up with our agenda, we're going to jump off today with IT being your silent business partner, the importance of the firewall in the IT solution, threats, how we stop them, go over a hardware comparison by the numbers, and we're going to wrap up with a Q&A. So jumping right off with IT being your silent business partner. Over the past several years, our worlds have changed quite a bit in the sense of our broadcast equipment has really merged with IT, almost becoming one now. We're sending data off-site, we're sending data to a cloud location, we're live streaming, and there's really no way to load antivirus on our broadcast equipment. So this is, in essence, creating open doors and vulnerabilities for our networks. Even going down to the basic equipment that we've been using for years on the network. Printers, security cameras, we're even adding things like Nest thermostats and Alexas, and these all create vulnerabilities for the network. And as things have progressed, naturally we cannot broadcast and really do our jobs if the network goes down whatsoever. We're so heavily reliant on it, which is really the reason why we need to protect ourselves in many different ways. So the importance of the firewall and the IT solution. Naturally there's more than one solution that's needed, but the firewall kind of acts as the bodyguard for the network. We also want to see things like antivirus and anti-malware on the network, on and off premise data backup, network monitoring, and I want to really highlight here employee protocols. One of the major things, you can have the best software, the best hardware in the world, but the thing is an employee is our weakest link in our network. The human error is the biggest, something that you cannot really fix unless you implement these protocols, or you implement a regular cybersecurity training, IT training for your employees. Traditionally, a lot of our networks are retroactive, meaning a piece of malware virus is loaded onto the network and is then removed after the fact. We really want to see something, as today's world is changing so quickly, you need to have a proactive network, a real-time cybersecurity solution in place. And I say that because the threat environment is growing so quickly. Every single second, even as we sit on this webinar here, 4 new pieces of malware created every second. Just in the US today, 8 million cyber attacks occur every single day. Out of that, 51% of those attacks are targeted toward networks that are smaller than 100 users. Even the Wall Street Journal said that over 50% of small businesses occurred a cyber attack last year and didn't even realize it. The reason that is because something called keylogging. And we're going to get into this a little bit further along as we progress with this webinar. But basically what it is something that sits on the network and captures data and sends it off-site. So as threats have changed so drastically, naturally, our solutions to protect ourselves need to adapt. So starting off with our first, this will be time for our first poll question. If you'd like to share an experience with us about phishing, or maybe you have a question about phishing or know someone that had an experience with, this would be the time to go through that. And we will later on review the results from the poll. So moving onwards to talking about phishing. I know we see this in the news a lot. We see this on the television a lot. Phishing is it's a fraudulent practice of someone impersonating to be someone else, whether it's a business colleague that that you conduct business with. It could be a vendor. It could be the CEO of your company or someone that you work with day to day. And generally what they want you to do, they either want to load something onto your machine, like a keylogger, piece of ransomware, or they want to actually get you to come into some type of financial transaction with them. They're very common. The reason that is because, again, as I mentioned earlier, the human error is one of the biggest things to exploit when it comes to hacking. Great example that we faced internally a few weeks ago. I get a forwarded email for an RFP for a very well-respected, well-known university in Boston that we've done business with in the past. And I look down at the header of who's sending it, and it's the director of procurement. So I look up his information in our CRM, customer management system, and I give him a call. I said, do you know anything about this RFP? I said, I haven't heard anything about it, and he hasn't either. So I said, okay, well, we're going to further pursue this and see what information we can find out about this to send back to you. Well, not only did this phishing attack have the correct information for who we have to deal with, the director of procurement and his team members. They had the correct tax ID. They had the correct tax-exempt information. They had the right Dun & Bradstreet information. They even had the right Bank of America employee that we deal with to conduct transactions with this client. So I say to myself, I'm looking through everything, and one of the first things I noticed was the email address that was sending we were communicating with. The format was different from what we had on file, and that was also listed online. So that was a red flag. And the second red flag was, one, the reason this is such a big deal, and we were taking it so seriously, is the RFP was well over 6 figures. Well, the terms were net 30. So if we were to ship this equipment, and this was fraudulent, we would have never been paid for it whatsoever. Well, the address that was provided to ship the equipment to was not the address that we had on file. So we turned over all the information, and they're further along investigating this. Another great example of this that we had to deal with internally was a local municipality in Mississippi. We get a call a few months ago, and just like a lot of us here, we take devices on and off the network to do work, to conduct our day-to-day operations. Well, the police chief had taken a laptop off-site, work remotely, whether it was at a restaurant or a hotel or he was traveling. When he came back onto the police network and he connected to the server there, what happened was there was a piece of malware that then infected another 10 locations, about 14 servers, hundreds of computers, and shut down the whole city. Before they called us, they'd been working on this for about 4 or 5 days and were completely taken down. It was so bad that police, fire, ambulatory were taken down completely and could not operate. So in this city, if you were pulled over by a police officer, they weren't able to print out a ticket for you because they couldn't log into their computer in the cruiser. So what they had to do was look at your license and actually send out a ticket in the mail to your address. It was, very common. If they had some more employee protocols in place, they could have avoided this, as well as we come to find out that they had not updated their firewall software for several months. A lot of firewalls out there, what you have to do is you have to download software either on a quarterly or a monthly basis and manually do it. A lot of times take down the network. So it's very important to stay ahead with your updates. What I want to highlight here is Bluebox is a solution that we work with, we recommend. But what I want you to get out of this, most of all, is the green lettering here, IPS/IDS. What that is intrusion prevention and detection systems. So if you were to get an email that was a phishing email, and it wanted to bring you to a link, it had a link attached, or it wanted you to download something there, so it would bring you to the internet, what would happen is after you click it, if you had a solution like this in place, the intrusion detection system would be sourcing through that code in real time without slowing down your machine, in essence. And the intrusion prevention system would actually be able to block that piece of malware or virus that phishing attack is trying to load. So again, what I want you to take out of this slide is the intrusion prevention and detection system. So these are two protocols that you should look for as you're exploring different solutions for your station. So
we did get almost 100% participation on our phishing poll, and 69% of folks said they had dealt with a phishing attempt before. 31% said no, and no one didn't know what phishing was, or at least didn't want to admit that they didn't know what phishing was. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one. So we talked about, you had two key things that you said folks needed to look for in terms of protection for phishing.
Correct. Intrusion prevention and intrusion detection systems. These are two different security protocols that you should be looking for in a solution to help, combat yourselves and protect yourselves from attacks like this. As we're moving along to viruses, a lot of us are familiar with them. They've changed over the years, but the virus is a piece of code that's capable of replicating itself with the sole purpose of corrupting your system or destroying the data. Well, one I'd like to highlight here is something called a boot sector. And the thing is, if we think back maybe 10, 15 years ago, when USB drives first came out, they're a little bit more expensive than they are today. Today you can go pick one up at your local store for $5, $10, $15. Well, the thing is what would happen is people would load malware and viruses onto a USB stick and leave them in heavily populated areas. And what I mean by that are, airports, train stations, restaurants, etc. They leave them there. You plug it into your machine thinking you just found a USB stick that you can now use. It would then load on that piece of virus or malware onto your machine. And when you went and connected to a network at work or at home, it would then infect all the other devices. And then next is worms. And these are spread by exploiting vulnerabilities in an operating system. So this is something that every one of you can do today to help protect yourselves, is check for updates on your computers and restart them. On a regular basis, we recommend to our customers on a weekly basis, you should be restarting and checking for updates on your machines. There's a reason why Microsoft and Apple have security teams that all day long they research vulnerabilities in their operating system. And they create a patch which is then pushed out through an update to do so. So I highly recommend running your updates. The next is Trojans. A lot of us are familiar with them, but this is actually what happened in Mississippi, as I mentioned earlier. It started off as a piece of malware on the police chief's laptop, but what happened was it ended up turning into a very, very vicious banking Trojan. It was so bad. I sat at the office and watched some of our engineers here dealing with the situation, getting them back up and running. They would spend hours trying to find this piece of code and trying to find this Trojan. And they finally find it, delete it, and by the time their hand left the mouse, it would self-replicate by the hundreds in all these subfolders all over the network. Absolutely brutal. So here's something a little bit closer to home. I'm here in Rhode Island in New England, and not too far from us, a local PEG station in Long Island, New York, was actually infected with crypto. Data was encrypted, which prohibited the station from being able to broadcast and conduct their jobs for a time period. So if we look on the screen here, this is actually a screenshot of what they had to put out. And in addition to that, other than having to deal with the encrypted data, 20 terabytes of data was taken by the Suffolk County Police for further investigation. Because it's not just the data that we might host on site and deal with day to day. Our servers, our networks might be in a town hall or be connected to other servers or other computers within the town. So again, moving forward to, Blue Box is a solution that we work with and recommend, but what I want you to take out of this is the bold lettering, DPI, Deep Packet Inspection. And a lot of firewalls, a lot of devices out there today have something called LPI. It's called Light Packet Inspection. The only downfall with it is the only ability it has to do is search a title. And what I mean by that is it searches a title of a website as you're browsing in real time. But you could title or categorize a website anything you want it to be if you had fraudulent reason to do so and have malware attached to it in the body text or on the page as it loads. But with Deep Packet Inspection, what you're able to do is in real time, in essence, without slowing down the network, without disrupting your experience online whatsoever, you're able to block content, but you're also able to inspect, like I said, not just the title and header, but the full body text. So after you click a link and before it loads, you're actually able to inspect not just the title, the header of the website, but the full body text. So in essence, it creates a real-time cybersecurity solution. So moving forward, this would be a time to see the previous poll results, and also if anyone would like to add anything about malware. Have you ever had experience with it? Maybe a colleague has, or you have a question about it. This would be the time to do so.
So I was just displaying the results of our virus poll there. Everyone can see. We didn't have anyone say that they had not been a target of a virus, but some people weren't sure. So hopefully this information will help you with that in the future. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that and move on to our malware poll, which I will launch now.
So as you fill out this poll and we move forward, the thing is there are a lot of different types of malware, and there are a few that I really want to focus on, but the sole purpose of malware is really to damage or disable your computer or network. So starting off with Adware, this is something that we're familiar with. It's been around for a while, and a lot of us here are familiar with the kind of give and take. Maybe we want a free ebook, we want to get a subscription to something at no cost online or a discount, so we put in our email, maybe our birthday, some basic information about us. Well, that information is then sold to a marketing company to market to you because our data is worth something. What's very interesting is that the average healthcare record is worth over $204, which is just astounding. And that's one of the reasons why hacking now is becoming a real career, is that it's per record over $204 worth in the black market. Earlier, I had mentioned that there was a case with the Wall Street Journal publishing something about over 50% of small businesses being hacked last year and not knowing it. Well, the reason for that is keyloggers. What a keylogger does is it captures every single keystroke, but it really looks for login information, for banking account information, trading accounts, QuickBooks accounts, and also general network information. But they're very, very sophisticated. They don't want to slow down your user experience, slow down your computer, encrypt your data, stop you from working. On average, they wait for 6 to 9 months on your network, and they don't do anything. But what they do and makes them very, very smart is they don't send over all the data they've captured over the last 6 to 9 months all at once. They send it over in very small packets of data overseas. So you don't notice an internet slowdown. You don't notice a slowdown in your machine whatsoever. You know, the reason why I have this example up here is because the AICPA is one of the largest, most respected organizations for tax accountants and CPA firms in the world. Not the country, the world. You know, I'm sure a lot of us here, whether it's for work or for personal reasons, we deal with a tax accountant at least once a year, or a CPA firm. So beginning in January of 18, CPAs across the globe are targeted with a specific spam, threatening them and revoking them of their CPA license. You know, and as we can see here, the poll results just came up from the past one here. You know, has your machine been infected by malware? 62% yes. Wow. And I'm going to minimize that right now for a second. But the thing is how it worked was, so as you would visit the AICPA, a message would come up saying that the user, accusing the user of tax fraud with a 14-day response window, which would then provide a clickable link that you can see here, complaint.doc. And now I'm going to get into how you can protect yourselves from this. What you're looking at is DNS Filtering and Inspecting. So domain name system filtering, domain name system inspecting. And what that is it's able to inspect known IP addresses in real time and actually block them. So for example, in that scenario, if it was going to bring you to that complaint.doc, bring you to an external link, the DNS inspecting would be able to look through and look for known IP addresses in real time. Now, paired with the deep packet inspection, some of the other software protocols that we've gone over earlier, this helps create a real-time cybersecurity solution. And I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with it, but a content filter, a web filter, this is actually how a web filter and content filter works. You know, content is blocked, and content is also cross-referenced over multiple sources. Now, there's a few lists out there that they work off of that have known IP addresses, malware, viruses, known vulnerabilities, and it works off of that. But the thing is, as I mentioned about Mississippi earlier, a lot of these firewalls today, they update on a monthly, quarterly basis, and they're manual. So you might even have to take down the network because they're so large. You want to find something that updates on a near real-time or real-time, if possible, basis, so you can stay ahead of the hackers. So moving onward, you know, going over different types of data breaches, you know, one of the really interesting is DDoS attacks, and that's a denial of service attack. Basically, what that does, and the reason why it's so common, is that the sole purpose of it is to overload your system with requests. And it overloads it so badly that it actually disables the machine, shuts it down. And it gives full control to that hacker. And the next one is water hole attacks. You know, I was at MIT in Boston not too long ago, and I attend a local security group. We meet up on quite the regular basis. And we took one of the board members in the group, and she had no hacking experience, no just basic, you know, use of a computer. We were able to take her onto an online forum. And the thing is she was able to hire someone to create a fake Citizens Bank login. Yes, a Citizens Bank login. For a few $100s, and within an hour or so time, she was able to find someone, have them create this. Naturally, we did not go ahead with this naturally. But in essence, what would happen would be is she'd hire this person, or someone that had fraudulent reason to do so would hire a person like this, create a fake login. You would go log into your bank account, and you would type in everything, your bank account information, your password for your online banking. You'd click enter. Nothing would happen. Page would refresh, maybe a wrong password or email notification would appear. You would think nothing of it. But what really happened is your information was sent and captured by a hacker. And it's very, very, very scary stuff. And naturally, for that type of attack and something like that, it's not going to stay up for that long, but maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes. But even that, 10, 15 minutes on someone like Citizens Bank, you capture hundreds, if not thousands, of bank accounts. So, talking about, perfect example. We've seen this in the news. The FBI has talked about it. CIA, the federal government's talked about it. Is the city of Atlanta. They fell victim to a ransomware attack and completely shut down. Over 8,000 employees were shut down for over 5 days, could not log into a user account. I'm sure a lot of us have dealt with this before. We're talking to the mayor's office, we're talking to town hall, we're talking to our superiors about, hey, we need a bigger budget. We need to allocate funds to this project. Well, the IT department had been warning the mayor's office for actually over a year that they had insufficient cybersecurity funds and that they needed more money to protect themselves sufficiently. So what happened was they got broadcasted and publicized across the whole country and the world that they fell victim to a ransomware attack. I mean, this slide's a little bit older. It's about 3-4 weeks old, the data on this. So the data is a little bit higher now, but when this was put in, it was over $2.7 million was spent just trying to get back up and running. That's still growing. They're still working on it now. So again, focus on the green writing, green titles. So what we need to focus on here is real-time updates or near real-time updates. A lot of solutions, you need to be updating not just your computers for things like worms and such, but you need to be updating your cybersecurity solutions on a regular basis so they can actually protect you. Because if you have something that's out of date, then it's nearly useless. And the second thing is geo-IP blocking. And what this protocol does, the sole purpose is this, is to block IP addresses coming from outside the country. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever that a IP address should be trying to connect to your camera equipment, to your switcher, to your broadcast equipment from Russia, from China, from the Ukraine. There's absolutely zero reason. So automatically, what this protocol does will block those IP addresses just like that, keep you protected. So I have this slide up here because, and I have a few of them that kind of go further along. Because the majority of people ask me or ask us, they say, well, Andrew, what's the difference between your firewall, a firewall I need to stay secure versus a software firewall, or my ISP modem, or my router? An ISP is Internet Service Provider, just so we all know. So the average ISP modem and router that you purchase, whether you go to a box store or purchase it online, they truly don't offer any true protection. Any additional features are a la carte pricing, maybe it's per device, and generally it's minimal in their retroactive protection. Internet service providers are in the business of providing internet, not security. Solution like Blue Box, all features are included. User pays a flat monthly rate for equipment, service, and maintenance. We're the only box in the industry right now that has gigabit throughput. A lot of these protocols that we've gone over in this slide that you need, they're really enterprise-grade protocols that are used in people like American Express and large corporations like that today to protect them. moving onward. So a little feature comparison. The average router and other devices out there, they're positioned behind the router, included, antivirus, a alert on a breach or an attack is you're notified after the fact. Your speed dependent on not just the plan that you have through the ISP, but the actual equipment. And with the protection that's given, you can actually minimize and see really, really slowed down results. Because common sense tells you if you're inspecting data in any essence, you're going to slow the network down. Well, that's true in a lot of other devices, but with a solution like with BlueBox, you're going to see well over gigabit speeds, 1,200 megabits, 1,200 megabit speeds, over gigabit speeds you're going to see, and you're going to see absolutely no slowdown if you put the right device inside. You're going to see a seamless integration on your network. If we think a lot of devices that you need to put on, they might take the network down for a day or a few hours. So here's one of the other questions we get. Well, I get told, Andrew, that's great that we need enterprise-grade solutions. Well, we don't really have the budget for that. And I say, well, it's not as much as you think or what you're already spending. A lot of the solutions out there today, whether you have an ISP modem or you have a router you bought aftermarket, you're $100 to $400 up front, plus an install. There's no real replacement without a warranty. You can purchase additional solutions, but the software could be $5 to $55 a device. It's really limited on what's out there. So, with something like BlueBox, it's an no upfront cost for the equipment. The actual device everything's included, and that's really what you want to look for when you're looking for solutions, because you don't want to have to hire an employee to manage the device 24/7, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and then also, sending out the updates all the time. You need something that's managed. So, additional, again, the green is what I want to highlight on, but when you're looking for a solution out there, some of the main things that we want to look for are things like deep packet inspection, where it's going to search not just the title, but the full body text and header of that page. GeoIP blocking to block known IP addresses coming from outside the country. DNS blocking to create a web filter for the network, as well as looking for known IP addresses. IPS and IDS, intrusion prevention and detection systems, kind of the bodyguard for the network. And also something with failover. And the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of us here, a lot of our stations might have Comcast and Verizon coming to the building, or Verizon and Cox. So if the internet does go down, there's never a time that you'll be without. Cyber attack. As we mentioned earlier, the frequency is just growing every single day. Every second, 4 new pieces of malware. Globally, about 16 million attacks per day to about 20 million we see, and just 8 million in the U.S. We've seen on average, $100 billion a year being spent on cyber crimes. So you're saying, well, how does it affect me? Well, the average security breach of a small business costs $40,000, and that's not including your reputation. That could be an employee's reputation. That could be a business owner's reputation. This has to be, a lot of these cases, they have to be publicized. And the reason that is that you have to notify the authorities if data is stolen. As we saw with the PEG station in Long Island, they had to get the Suffolk County Police involved. In addition to our second bullet here, 60% of the businesses in the SMB space do not have a contingency plan. There's also 60% of businesses that incur any type of data loss. They're out of business within 1 year. And as we saw earlier, you might have to get the police, the CIA, or the FBI involved, depending on the severity. So in summary, naturally there's an ever-changing amount of threats out there. And they're changing every single day, which means we need to change as they change. We need to stay ahead of the hackers, I like to say. That's why we need to create a proactive network and implement real-time cybersecurity solutions to protect not just our IT network, but our broadcast equipment, so we can do our jobs best. We'll be touching base after the webinar, so you can direct any questions directly to myself also. I'll be reaching out about cybersecurity in your network.
This is a recurring series that you can subscribe to on our website. If you go to cablecast.tv, under Community Resources, you'll find the PEG Experts Forum, and there is a subscription link there, and that will get you notifications on all the upcoming webinars like this one, blog posts, as well as our live workshops. So thank you all for joining us.
You guys have a great day.